Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere ancient, older than pyramids, older than legends, into the dust-colored heart of Mesopotamia. Picture it, soft wind over mud brick rooftops, the scent of reed and incense thick in the night air, and in a quiet corner of the temple's shadowy library. There you are, pressing sharp lines into a wet clay tablet. You're a scribe, but not just any scribe. You're a female scribe, which, in this world, is a bit like being the only cat at a dog convention. And yeah, you probably wouldn't survive more than an hour. Because being a scribe isn't just about knowing how to write wheat ration for the month of Dumuzi. It's about politics, divine omens, secret orders, and the looming fear that your stylist could get you killed faster than a bad omen from the stars. Right now, though, you're hunched over that tablet, clay cool beneath your fingertips. You squint in the dim light of a flickering oil lamp, its smoke curling into the rafters like a whisper you can't quite hear. The stylus clinks softly, wedge by wedge, word by word, as you press each symbol with care. The tablet is meant to record tax deliveries, at least officially, but the priest behind, he knows what you're really writing. And the silence between his coughs says more than any inscription. The temple walls are thick, meant to keep out sand, wind, and noise. But they can't block suspicion. You can feel it settling around you like desert dust. It doesn't help that you're the only woman in this scriptorium. Most female scribes are kept to healing incantations, childbirth records, or, if they're really trusted correspondents. Between priestesses, You've been assigned to record temple accounts and festival expenditures, and that's a promotion that feels a lot like a trap. C. The last person to handle this tablet assignment fell ill. That's the official line. The unofficial one is that she noticed a few royal offerings going unaccounted for. And maybe, just maybe, someone noticed her noticing. Now it's your turn. And as you trace the sign for barley, your hands tremble slightly. Is that from nerves, or the way the priest's shadow has been lingering just a little too long behind you? Still, you focus. The symbols are like a dance. Sharp lines, soft corners. A rhythm you've practiced since you were 5 years old. You were one of the lucky ones. Your mother bribed the head scribe to let you in. He laughed, said, "Let her try." She quit after a week. You didn't quit. You outlasted 3 boys who cried over their broken styluses, and one who used his clay tablet as a plate. But tonight, it feels like the clay is pushing back. The oil lamp flickers again, casting the room in gold, then shadow. Your seat is uncomfortable, just a flat brick bench, but your back is used to it. What it's not used to is the way that silence feels like pressure. You glance at the entrance. No guards, yet then, a whisper from your left. Not a voice, just the shuffling of another scribe's tablet stack, rearranged too precisely. You glance his way, and he offers the kind of half-smile you give someone who might be arrested tomorrow. You dip your stylus again. This line, it's the final tally, 20 shekels missing. No way to hide it. No way to round the numbers without making it obvious. You press in the final wedge, and then your hand pauses, because here's the truth. That error isn't yours. It's been repeated across 5 tablets from the past month. Always a different number, always a different scribe. But the name on the delivery slip, always the same priest. You know it. So does the man behind you. You also know that if you say anything, if your tablet tells the wrong truth, your reed stylus could become a dagger aimed at your own name. You shift the symbols slightly, not to lie, just to suggest. You leave the number accurate, but in the corner you mark a sign, Jim. It means repeat. It's not part of the official code. But any seasoned scribe would know this isn't the first time. Maybe it'll be enough. Maybe it won't. Outside, a temple bell clangs 3 slow tones. End of the shift. You wipe your hands on your robe, stand, and offer your tablet to the archivist. He raises an eyebrow, weighs it in his hand, and nods. Walk with caution. He murmurs. That's the closest thing to a compliment you'll get, Dot, as you step out into the cold air. The sky above you is low and gray. Rain in the distance? Maybe. You wrap your shawl tighter, tucking the stylus behind your ear like a secret you'll never tell. In the street, a man selling dates shouts about a lucky omen, and a child throws pebbles at a goat. But your mind is back inside the SCRIPTORIUM. Dot, the clay tablet you handed over might change nothing. Or everything, Dot, and in this job, where words hold power and women are expected to hold silence, every tablet is a gamble. You walk home carefully, knowing one misstep might mean your story ends not with a scream, but with a smear of clay no one bothers to read. You barely sleep. The rain finally comes, not as a gentle drizzle, but as a punishing thrum against your clay-tiled roof. You lie awake, listening to it beat like war drums on the world's oldest ceiling. Somewhere a tile cracks. You count the seconds between each lightning flash and thunderclap, the way you used to count the wedges of a complex cuneiform verb. Morning arrives in a haze, not just from lack of sleep, but from the real fog curling through the alleyways. Mesopotamia isn't known for mists, but here it is, like the world has forgotten how to wake up. You bundle yourself in layers and head back to the temple school, the Adoba. It's where you first learned to read, where you bled from the knuckles the first time you made a mistake, a miswritten name, a missed divine sign. They didn't go easy just because you were small or female, especially not because you were female. You step into the school's stone doorway, where the air still smells like damp clay and hot ink. Children sit cross-legged on the floor, their reed styluses poking out of their hair like awkward porcupines. The recitation master drones on, reciting a hymn older than the language it's written in. You smile, despite yourself. You remember that hymn. You once sneezed halfway through it and were made to copy it 72 times on palm-sized tablets until your fingers swelled like dates in the sun. But today, you're not here for nostalgia. You're here for survival. The head scribe calls your name. His face is like an old tablet, cracked, unreadable, but still very much full of meaning. He doesn't invite you into his office. He gestures with his head toward the private archive, the kind of place you only go for two reasons: a promotion or a warning. You step inside. It smells like burnt cedar and old secrets. About your tablet, he says, without preamble. Your heart skips a wedge. It was thorough. A pause. Too thorough. You play dumb. I wasn't aware there was such a thing. He doesn't smile. You use the gym mark. You glance at the shelf rows and rows of gray slabs lined up, like sleeping soldiers. It's not an official symbol. That's the problem. You want to say a dozen things, that it's been used by scribes before you, that patterns deserve notice, that maybe if people paid more attention to Jim, we wouldn't be in this mess. Instead, I won't use it again. He sighs. That's not why you're here. He pulls something from behind his robe, a smaller tablet, rough-edged. The royal steward has asked for your service. Your blood freezes. That's not a promotion. That's a summons. He needs someone who can copy quickly, cleanly, and discreetly. A test or a trap? Probably both. You nod. When? Now. The royal quarters are a maze of polished stone, curtained shadows, and the scent of too much perfume. You're ushered into a chamber with walls painted in cobalt and gold. A bronze brazier glows in one corner. The steward doesn't look at you. He points at a scroll. Copy it, precisely. No embellishments, no marks. You sit cross-legged on the mat, heart thudding, fingers trembling only slightly as you unroll the scroll and begin. It's not a religious hymn. It's not a tax record. It's a directive. A list of names. And beside each name, a single word. Some say transfer. Some say reassign. Some say silence. You don't breathe for a full minute. There's a name you recognize. A woman you trained with. She taught you the double mark trick for hiding errors. You saw her last week at the well, humming to her goat. Now her name sits on this scroll like it's already carved on her grave. You press your stylus into the clay with perfect precision. You don't flinch. Don't blink. Don't even think. This is what scribes do. They write the words that outlive them, even the dangerous ones. When you're finished, you hand the tablet to the steward. He doesn't even check it. He waves you off like smoke. You walk out slower this time. Heavier, like the words are still stuck in your bones. Outside, the rain has stopped. The fog is lifted. But you're sinking deeper into a history you're now helping to write one. Name at a time. And as you walk back through the school's courtyard, past the recitation children and the cracked murals of forgotten gods, you realize something. You are no longer just a student. You're becoming a memory waiting to be miswritten. The next day begins with a messenger. Not a uniformed servant, not a priest's apprentice, just a barefoot boy with a tablet slung in a frayed reed pouch. He doesn't speak, just hands you the slab and vanishes into the crowd like he was never there. You study the clay. The script is small, cramped. Someone clearly didn't want this to be easy to read in a glance. But your eyes have been trained to pick through secrets like bone shards in barley soup. The message is coded, not in ciphers or riddles, but in nuance. A scribe's trick. Half-conjugated verbs, deliberate grammar stumbles, a wedge drawn slightly off-center. It takes a moment before you piece together the meaning. She's missing. You know who it means. The woman from the scroll. The one you copied. The one who hummed to her goat. Your fingers tighten around the tablet. You've been pulled into something larger. Not by choice, not by courage, but by ink and wedge. So you go to the ziggurat. Not the grand one where the king prays for peace while declaring war, but the older one. The forgotten shrine near the market edge where rats outnumber priests. Where memories are buried beneath incense ash and half-crushed dates. You climb its chipped steps, skirt a group of children tossing bones, and duck into a side room lined with idols so weather-worn they could be strangers. And you find her, just not in the way you hoped. Not your friend, no. A priestess. Young, trembling, her mouth pressed into a line like she's swallowed a secret, and it's burning its way out. You say her name gently. Offer your hands open. Scribes aren't known for kindness, but fear respects no profession, she whispers. They're removing us. Who? You ask, though you already know. She hesitates. Then, anyone who knew how to write. And ask the wrong questions. You ask, what about the temple archive? She shakes her head. Empty. They're purging tablets. Recarving history. And for the first time, your body chills from the inside out. Because this isn't about one name, or even one list. It's about stories. About what gets remembered. About who controls memory. You stumble out of the shrine like you've just read your own death omen. The streets are loud again, fruit sellers arguing over spoiled dates. A donkey bellowing near the potter's shop, a baby wailing like it knows. Something terrible is about to happen. Back at your quarters, you lock the door, light a small lamp, roll out your own scrolls. You start writing, not the official script, not temple records, but your own record. Names, events, the truth as you saw it, not clean, not ordered, but real. And then you take a risk no scribe is trained for. You press the gym mark beside your own name, the wedge they told you never to use. The one that says, this is not standard, this is personal. Night falls slowly, as if the sky itself is unsure whether to sleep. You seal the tablet and bury it under the clay floor, just beside the mat you've slept on since you were 12. You whisper a prayer, not to the gods of kings, but to Nisaba, the goddess of writing. You ask her for two things: that someone someday finds what you've buried, and that they believe it. When you finally lie down, you don't dream. You're too tired for hope, too awake for escape. But just before sleep catches you, you hear something outside. Footsteps, heavy ones. You stay still, silent, because you know what happens next isn't about guilt or innocence. It's about being a woman who remembers too much. The next morning arrives without sun. A dull, thick haze blankets the city, as if the gods are unsure whether to smother or spare it. You sit cross-legged beside the barely glowing oil lamp, listening. Nothing stirs. But the moment you unlatch the door, the spell breaks. 3 soldiers stand there, robes gray with dust, their eyes sharp and bored. The kind of boredom that invites cruelty. They don't speak at first, just push past you, sandals scraping over the clay. One kneels, tapping his knuckle on the floor beside your sleeping mat. Too close. You try to sound casual. Can I help you? Find something? The one at the door smirks. That depends. Lost any dangerous ideas lately? You consider lying, but liars are obvious when their heartbeat is loud enough to drum a funeral march. Instead, you shrug. I lost my sandal in the canal yesterday. Very dangerous, almost poetic. They don't laugh, of course not. They're not here for jokes. They're here because someone whispered your name, or because someone else vanished. And scribes don't vanish quietly, they search. They poke through your scroll rack, sniff your ink jars like your thoughts might be bottled in there. One lifts your stylus, examining the point. These are sharp, he mutters. You manage a smile. So are my margins. Eventually they leave. No warnings, no charges. Just a long, heavy glance before the last one shuts the door. You sit. You breathe. You try not to fall apart. Then you rise. There's only one place you can go. The House of Records, the grand tablet hall with its rows upon rows of shelves, stacked like a honeycomb of truth and lies. The gatekeeper recognizes you. You've copied contracts here, names of landowners, marriage documents, even the occasional complaint about goat theft. Today, you ask to see war records. He squints. You've never cared about war. You say, I'm starting to think war cares about me. He lets you in. The clay tablets are organized by campaign, by year, by ruler's mood. You find one dated 2 reigns ago, just before the archive started thinning like an old man's hairline. You read, you scan. You find something. A name, not the name you expected, but hers. The missing scribe. She had transcribed messages for a general known for strategic disappearances. And then your stomach drops. You recognize her handwriting in the margin's soft corrections, clarifying grammar, fixing someone else's lies. She made the truth too clear, and someone erased her for it. You copy one of the tablets quickly, not for preservation, but protection. If they come for you again, you'll leave this behind. Let someone else pick up the pieces. On your way out, the gatekeeper pulls you aside, his voice low. They asked about you last night. You nod. You expected that. He hands you a roll of papyrus, not standard issue. Private, personal, hidden. You unroll it when you're safely home. It's a letter, no name. Just a phrase. The woman in red is still alive. The Western Shrine. You freeze. You remember her, the girl who always wore saffron robes, with ink-stained fingers and an odd habit of counting every step she took. Alive. You shouldn't go. You should lie low. Erase yourself. But something stronger than fear tugs at your spine. Curiosity. Loyalty. The maddening itch of unfinished sentences. So that night, beneath a moon that looks like it's holding its breath, you slip through the alleys. To the Western Shrine. To the next chapter you aren't sure you're ready to write. The Western Shrine isn't on any official map. It clings to the edge of the old city, like a superstition no one wants to believe in, but no one dares forget. The bricks are mismatched, some still bearing the faded carvings of gods whose names fell out of fashion a dozen dynasties ago. Vines strangle the pillars. Soot coats the statues like time's very own fingerprint. You hesitate before entering. Not because of ghosts, they don't scare you anymore. It's the living you have to worry about. Inside, the air is thicker than outside, as if it remembers every whispered prayer ever uttered within these walls. Oil lamps flicker on narrow ledges, their flames too low, too uncertain. And then you see her. She's sitting cross-legged by the altar, hunched over a wax tablet. Same chapped hands, same ink under the nails, but her hair's shorter now, eyes sharper. Like someone who's lived too many truths too fast. She doesn't look up. Took you long enough. You want to laugh or cry. Instead you say, I had a very busy week being interrogated by men who think metaphor is treason. She snorts, still scribbling. They're not wrong. You sit beside her, close enough to feel the warmth of the flame, but not close enough to burn. She finally looks at you, and in that look is the unspoken history of every woman scribe who ever hid her brilliance behind careful handwriting. They'll come again, she says. This time they'll take more than just ink. You know, you feel it in the marrow of your bones trained to bend but not break. You ask, what are you working on? She pushes the tablet toward you. It's a transcription of a prophecy written by a priestess who vanished after declaring, the moon would eat the sun if women weren't allowed to speak their truths. She wrote this using the royal code, the one only scribes like us are supposed to know. It's hidden in the vowel markers. You blink. I thought that code was lost. She taps the stylus against the tablet. No, just buried. Like us, it's all starting to make sense now. The records, the missing names, the sudden fear in the eyes of older scribes when certain words are spoken aloud. A war is being fought not with swords or arrows, but syllables. And your side is losing. She shows you more. Scrolls, fragments, scribbled corrections that look like nonsense unless you know how to read around the lines. It's a whole underground library, pulsing just beneath the city's official history. Why keep it hidden? You ask. She doesn't answer. Just gestures toward the wall, where a name has been scratched out so hard the brick is chipped. Then she points to her own chest, to yours. That's why. Later, she tells you the plan. There's a shipment leaving the next day, tablets meant for the palace archive. Inside it, she's hidden copies of every forbiddance record she salvaged. Names, events, prayers. Even a list of every woman scribe who ever vanished without explanation. They won't read them. They'll shelve them, she says, smirking. But someday, someone will open the wrong drawer. Your task is simple, terrifying, elegant. Sneak her manuscript into the shipment unnoticed. You agree, of course, because saying no feels like choking on dust. That night, as you leave the shrine, you glance back once, just once, and catch her, staring at the altar. What are you praying for? You ask. She shrugs. Ink that doesn't run. Gods that don't forget. You both laugh. It's quiet, sharp, necessary. And as you melt back into the darkened city, the streets seem to lean toward you, listening. The city doesn't know your name yet, but it will. You don't sleep that night. Who could? You lie on your mat staring at the ceiling, the patterns in the clay above you twisting into strange alphabets, each crack a forgotten line of poetry. Your heartbeat becomes your metronome, counting down to dawn and to danger. By the time the sun stains the rooftops with that dusty gold only Mesopotamian mornings know how to make, you're already outside the scriptorium gates. The shipment is scheduled to leave just after the morning hymn, and the priest in charge has a reputation for showing up late and smelling like fermented dates. Perfect. You hold the manuscript under your tunic, its edges bruising your ribs with every breath. It's heavier than it looks, not just in weight, but in memory, in risk. You whisper a quiet apology to the goddess of ink, then another to the god of plausible deniability. The ox-drawn cart is already half loaded. Clay tablets stacked like loaves of stale bread, each wrapped in linen and labeled in neat, dry handwriting. You spot your window, a basket still half empty. The scribe responsible distracted by a heated argument over whether or not to include a catalog tag for duplicate entries. You move like smoke. One breath. One step. You slide your manuscript between two wrapped tablets. Brush off the dust and pretend like your heart isn't thundering loud enough to start a riot. Hey, scribe. A voice snaps behind you. You freeze. Is this it? Is this where they drag you out by your hair and accuse you of smuggling forbiddens? Knowledge with the same tone they use for smuggling fermented goat milk? But the voice continues, bored, annoyed. Not yet suspicious. You catalog the shipment of King Lugal's irrigation decrees yet. I'm not doing it twice. You nod without looking up. It's on the back scroll, already logged. The grunt, good. And just like that, you're invisible again. As the oxen creak forward, your fingers still tingle. The tablet is out. Of your hands now, tucked among dozens of others, all heading toward the royal archive, where no one reads anything unless it's been approved by 3 priests, stamped twice, and blessed with holy water steeped in 7 herbs and 1 metaphor. But your part's not done. Not even close. You spend the afternoon in the Hall of Inscriptions, pretending to copy tax records from the grain district. In truth, you're writing coded footnotes, little flourishes in the tail of a letter here, a flick in a corner loop. They're an entire second story written, beneath the surface of the first dot. It's a craft taught to only a handful of women scribes, most of whom were smart enough to retire to pottery. You're almost finished with a particularly cheeky footnote about a crooked priest when you hear raised voices from down the corridor. Not angry, excited. You lean back just enough to hear the words contraband tablet and seal not matching. And then, most dangerous of all, get the high priest. Your stomach folds in on itself like a collapsing scroll. You don't run. That's how you get caught. You walk slow, careful, deliberate out of the hall and into the open courtyard, pretending to admire the chipped statue of King Arnamo that's missing its nose because someone mistook it for a bird bath last winter. You wait, and the hour drips by like resin. No footsteps, no accusations. Finally, you see her again, your fellow scribe, appearing in the courtyard like smoke. She's not smiling, but her eyes say it all. It worked? You whisper. She nods. They shelved it. You lean against the pillar, barely noticing how the sandstone leaves its gritty skin on yours. It's done. You've passed the threshold. You are no longer just a scribe. You are a whisper in the archive, a tremble in the royal records. A thorn in the future's side. And as the sun sets over the city, casting everything in burnt gold and shadow, you allow yourself to smile, but just a little, because this was only the first secret, and history, as it turns out, is very, very hungry. The next morning arrives with the smell of burning barley and another city-wide water shortage. You wake to the sound of your neighbor yelling at a goat again, and an aching certainty that your secret success won't stay secret for long. Still, you walk to the temple archives like everything is normal. You smile at the guards. You nod at the acolytes. You even share a stale fig cake with the elderly priest who always gets clay under his fingernails. You're playing the part loyal, quiet, diligent, but your fingers twitch for more. That's when she pulls you aside again, your partner in rebellion, though you've never dared call her that aloud. She doesn't waste time. There's another one, she whispers, eyes scanning the hall. Buried under the old records from Enlil's flood ceremonies. Your mouth goes dry. The flood ceremonies were supposed to be symbolic reenactments from a myth no one believed anymore. But the records, the old ones, they were different. Less parable, more prophecy. And some were banned outright because they contradicted the current priesthood's version of events. One of them even claimed the floods came not as punishment, but as relief. Are you sure? You ask. She nods. And there's something else, an older name, not Sumerian. You pause. That's unusual. Everything in this place traces back to the same handful of royal lines and deity dramas. Anything outside that is like finding a fish in a wine jug possible, but deeply suspicious. You agree to meet her after sundown, at the edge of the temple gardens where no one ever goes unless they're seeking scandal or solitude. Or both. The day drags on like wet clay. You copy meaningless lists. You record livestock trades and temple donations with a straight face while wondering who thought too. Jars of pickled onions counted as a suitable offering to Inanna. Then comes the evening. The gardens are quiet, too quiet. You hear the cicadas. You hear the fountain. But you don't hear her. You wait and wait. You're about to leave when you hear the softest thump. Not from the path. From under it. It takes you a moment to realize where you are, near the old archive shaft. A place once used for ventilation, now sealed, supposedly. But it isn't sealed. You crouch and see the stone cover pried open by inches. Just enough for someone small or desperate to slip through. You follow. It's dark and cold and smells like ink and iron. You move downward, using your fingers to feel the edges of the wall. Then a faint glow, a flicker of oil lamp. And her face. Look, she whispers, holding out a slab. It's not a standard tablet. It's shaped differently, thinner, rounder edges. The script is unfamiliar, angular. You squint and feel your heart thump in a rhythm older than fear. I don't know what language this is, she says, but some of the symbols match Proto-Elamite. You blink. Proto-Elamite? That's prehistoric. That's not just before the floods. That's before written laws, before temple taxes, before someone thought sacrificing a goat would fix their crops. You kneel beside her. The text is scratched deep. No stylistic flourishes, no gods praised, no king named. Just lines etched over lines, as though someone kept writing, not for others to read, but to trap something inside. It's a confession, a warning, and a prayer. Your voice is barely a whisper. Why would this be hidden in Enlil's flood scrolls? She answers with the thing you fear most, because this came before the gods. A long silence. Then you both look up simultaneously, as if sensing something shift in the stone above. We shouldn't stay, she says, eyes wide now. We shouldn't have found this. But it's too late. Your fingers still burn from touching it. And in your mind, just for a second, you hear a voice that isn't yours, whispering in a language you don't understand, but somehow, your bones. You leave the chamber. Seal it again. But you know you'll be back, because history doesn't just record events. Sometimes it remembers people. The next few days, you do everything you can to act normal. You sweep the floors of the archive room twice. You deliver fresh ink to the high priest's assistant, even before he asks. You even volunteer to translate shipping records from a grain silo that's been closed since your grandmother's youth. It's all very admirable, very boring, but your mind isn't quiet. The memory of that tablet hums behind your eyes like a wasp trapped in clay. You keep seeing the strange symbols. You keep hearing that voice, the one you still refuse to believe was real. And every time you pass the statue of Enlil, you wonder if his smile has changed. Just a little. Then one afternoon, your partner presses something into your palm, a clay seal, old and worn. The symbol on it doesn't match any of the known dynasties. From the same chamber, she murmurs. It was buried beneath the tablet. The seal isn't broken. It's intact. That means it was meant to protect something. Or maybe to keep something inside. You both agree to keep it hidden. For now. But then the temple changes. It's subtle at first. An assistant goes missing. Someone you only knew by the sound of his hiccups during prayer. A guard collapses during midday rites and wakes up muttering about sandstorms and burning eyes. And then the dreams begin. Yours are always the same. Woman stands in a ruined ziggurat, her arms painted in ink, her eyes covered by linen. She whispers words into a pot, seals it with wax. and drops it into water that is impossibly deep. You wake up sweating, fingers curled like they're still holding a stylus. You don't tell anyone. Not even her, but when she shows up one morning with the exact same image scratched onto a wax tablet before you even describe it, you nearly drop your stylus. It's not coincidence, she says. It's memory, but not ours. You start digging, quietly. Strategically. You invent reasons to visit the Forbidden's archive vault. You offer to help rewrite the genealogy lists. No one checks those anymore. You use a broken lamp as an excuse to examine the stone foundations. And every time you find something, a word, a mark, a name carved by a hand that shouldn't exist. One evening, you find a scroll hidden inside a false panel behind the shrine of Nisaba, the goddess of writing. Irony, apparently, has a sense of humor. The scroll isn't written in Sumerian or Akkadian or anything you've studied, but the pattern of the script feels intimate, like someone whispering directly into your spine. You copy it by hand. Even though your fingers tremble. She helps you cross-reference it. The words begin to make sense. Not all at once. Not clearly, but enough to understand that what you found isn't a warning from the past. It's a message from something buried, something waiting. The ink they used, she says quietly, wasn't made from soot. You pause. She looks at you. It was blood. Human blood. You feel something inside you shift. Something old and slightly amused. You try to laugh. That explains the permanence. She doesn't laugh. Neither do you. The temple gets colder somehow, even during the peak of the harvest. Sun. The archive rooms feel damp, like the walls are exhaling. You stop sleeping well. You start seeing patterns in the arrangement of the tablets. Words that form if you stand at a certain angle. Phrases that whisper through cracks in the floor, and worse, others start noticing too. Acolytes complain of voices. The priests begin arguing over doctrine. Bitterly, violently, someone paints over the statue of Inanna in mud. And one morning, you find a tablet on your desk. One you didn't write. One you don't remember ever seeing. But it's in your handwriting. The words, you are not the first. You stare at it. And for the first time, you wonder if you're not just translating the story. You might be part of it. The tablet stays on your desk for 3 days. You don't touch it. You don't show it to anyone. But you don't throw it away either, because deep down, you suspect that if you tried, it would return. Maybe in your satchel. Maybe on your pillow. Maybe carved on the inside of your eyelids. The message, you are not the first. It should be comforting. It's not. Instead, it feels like being watched by someone who has already seen you fail. Your partner tries to talk you down. She suggests sleep, dates soaked in honey, lavender oil for the temples. But even she can't hide the shadows beneath her eyes, the way she avoids the northeast wing of the temple now. The corridor where the oldest tablets whisper when the wind is wrong. You start writing at night. Not translations. Not reports. Letters. To no one. Or maybe to the person you used to be. You don't plan them. You don't read them back. The stylus just moves, like something is borrowing your hand. On the 5th night, a guard collapses screaming. He claws at his own face until 3 scribes hold him down. You arrive just in time to hear his last coherent sentence. She told me the ink is still wet. He doesn't wake up. You whisper that sentence to yourself for hours. The ink is still wet. What does it mean? Is it literal? Is something being written right now, beneath your feet or in the sky? Or worse, through you? You can't stop thinking about the ancient scroll, the one you found behind the shrine. You begin to notice a rhythm to its symbols, a pulse. When you chant it softly, only in your mind, never aloud, your bones seem to vibrate. You know this is dangerous. You do it anyway. A week later, something changes. You wake up before dawn, heart pounding, drenched in sweat, the words of the chant still echoing silently. You don't remember dreaming, but you do remember knowing. A certainty in your chest that you must return to the chamber. The forbidden one. The one beneath the archive vault. The one that's supposed to be sealed. You take a lamp. You don't. Take anyone else. The corridor smells of burnt cedar and iron. The kind of smell that sticks behind your teeth. You reach the entrance. A slab of stone carved with Mesopotamian laws that haven't been enforced in 2 centuries. You place your hand against it. It's warm, and it moves. Not quickly, not dramatically, but just enough to let you through. Inside, the air is thick with dust, but you can tell someone's been here. Recently, there are footprints. Not many, just one set. Barefoot. And they match yours. At the center of the room is a bowl. Bronze, shallow, lined with carvings so worn you can't tell if they're writing or decoration. Above it hangs a single string, swaying slightly, even though there is no wind. And on the floor, a stylus. Just like yours, the bowl is empty, but your fingers itch. You shouldn't. You mustn't. You do. You pick up the stylus and begin to write in the bowl, even though there is no parchment. Even though you don't understand the words. Even though they pour out of you like you've written them before. The bowl begins to darken. Slowly. The bronze turns black. The string stops swaying. You hear something far away. Like stone grinding against stone. Or bone against bone. And when you stop writing, you realize you've filled the bowl, but not with ink. It's a thick, dark red. You drop the stylus. The room exhales. And so do you. You walk away slowly. You don't run. Not this time. There's no point, because you understand. Now you're not translating history. You're reliving it. And worse, you're continuing it. The bowl stains your thoughts for days. Even when you try to focus on mundane duties, checking read quality, cataloging lunar records, answering absurd questions from nobles who still don't understand the difference between a contract and a curse. You feel it, the weight, the pull, like gravity but crueler, personal, and it begins to whisper. Not in words you can hear, not out loud, but in suggestions. You dream of etchings you've never made. You find yourself tracing letters. On your skin, absent-mindedly tiny syllables curling along your wrist, trailing up your arm, right to the base of your throat. They disappear by morning, but your skin remembers. One night, you visit your partner's chamber to confess everything. She doesn't answer the door, because it's already open, inside. It smells of salt and ashes. Her tablets are shattered. Her water jar overturned. Her cot perfectly undisturbed. But she is not there. What is there is one thing. A clay tablet, resting neatly on her writing bench. The same size as the one you found before. Same strange grain, same slightly shimmering edge. Pick it up, and it burns you, but not in the way fire does. It sears ideas into your fingers. You drop it, but it doesn't fall. It stays hovering for a moment, then lands as if cushioned by something you cannot see. The text carved into it is simple. You are now alone. You sit down on the floor, and for the first time, you cry. Not the weeping of grief, but the kind of crying you didn't know you had inside you. A trembling, broken sort that feels like a wordless scream stored in your lungs for years. The next morning, she returns, walking up the archive steps like nothing happened, except her eyes no longer match. One is hers soft brown, gentle. The other is gold-flecked obsidian, and it never blinks. She doesn't remember leaving. She doesn't remember the room. She doesn't remember you, but she remembers the bowl. She draws it without being asked, perfectly, on a fresh tablet. Then, without comment, she smashes the stylus she used and sets the shards in a circle on the floor. You try to speak. She simply shakes her head. That night, you study the old stories for the first time, not as a scholar, but as someone looking for escape. Buried in the epic of Enheduanna is a line you never noticed before. A single stanza that only appears on one copy, written so faintly it was likely added centuries later. It reads, She wrote not for glory, but for memory. And in doing so, she was made to forget herself. You read it again, and again, and realize you've stopped dreaming about your own life entirely. Everything you see, even in sleep, is there's kings whispering madness, temples growing teeth, rivers reversing, styluses blooming like flowers from the skulls of scribes. You start writing those dreams, and as soon as you do, you sleep better. But others start to fray. One by one, the senior archivists forget their names. The temple cat begins bringing you live birds, uninjured, and stares until you write something new before letting them go. A child apprentice says the sand speaks if you're quiet long enough. You test that theory. You lie in the desert just outside the city, ears full of dust, listening. At first, silence, then movement, like dry skin slithering across old parchment, and then a voice, softer than wind. You are not the first. You sit up. Sand pours from your sleeves like it's been waiting to be released. That night, you etch one final line before sleep. Memory is not the opposite of forgetting. It is the method. You don't remember falling asleep that night, but you do remember waking up. Not in your own bed, not even in your own city. You open your eyes to a dim ochre twilight. The sky above you is heavy with ash-colored clouds, thick like wool soaked in oil. The ground beneath is cracked clay, humming faintly as if something beneath it is breathing. You are in a version of you do not recognize. It's silent. No footsteps, no chatter, no dogs barking, no carts creaking. Just the soft pulsing exhale of earth itself. You walk the streets, and every house you pass has its doors open, windows shattered inward. Tablets are scattered across the thresholds like dead leaves. You peek into one doorway and find a family seated around an empty table, utterly still. Not petrified, just frozen, mid-motion. A child with a hand halfway to her mouth. A father mid-chuckle, but no breath moves them. You take a step back, and your sandal presses into a tablet buried under dust. You pick it up. It's your handwriting. It's your dream from 3 nights ago. The one where the gods climbed up from a well and started writing. You flip the tablet over. There's a second layer of text you didn't write. New script. Curved, alien, fluid as water, but burned in deep. Suddenly, your own fingers ache. You glance down. There's dried clay beneath your nails, but you didn't write anything recently. Not while awake, at least. Behind you. Something shifts. You turn and see a familiar figure at the end of the street, your partner, the one who came back with eyes no longer her own. But she is younger here, thinner, dressed in the old uniform of a junior scribe. She sees you, but doesn't seem surprised. You're almost finished, she says. With what? She blinks slowly, recording it. Then she turns and walks away, her feet not quite touching the ground. You try to follow, but with every step you take, the city begins to rewrite itself. Walls shift, alleyways grow longer, doors relocate. A ziggurat rises in the distance, not brick by brick, but as if inked into existence by an invisible stylus. It pulses gold. You run toward it, even as the air thickens with the scent of myrrh and iron. The sky dims further, and whispers begin to collect around your ears. Some are familiar, lines you copied in your first year at the archive. Some are yours, old diary entries, scraps of dreams, things you wrote and buried. The ziggurat is taller than anything in yours. Real history. You climb. Each step feels like pressing into wet parchment. Your hands trail along glyphs that shift under your touch. They resist. They flex. They judge. At the top, a chamber. Within, a bowl. Not the bowl. This one is cracked, scorched, its edges worn to powder. Beside it, an obsidian mirror. You crawl forward on hands and knees, compelled, drawn by a pull that feels older than you. You peer into the mirror, and it peers back. But it's not your face. It's every scribe who came before you, layered in. Shimmering ink, eyes hollowed by secrets too ancient to hold. One of them mouths a single word. Write. Your hands obey before your mind does. You reach for the cracked bowl and begin to mix ink that wasn't there a second ago, thick, dark, metallic. You dip your stylus, and even though the tablet before you is blank, you begin writing names. Names. You don't know, but your hand does. You write until the ink runs dry. You look up. The mirror is gone. The chamber is empty, and you are alone again. But now, every breath you take feels like a sentence. Every blink, a comma. Every heartbeat, a chapter closing. You wake, back in your cot, your stylus still in your hand, your fingers black with ink dot, and beside you a tablet dot still warm, inscribed with your dream. You don't get out of bed right away. You stare at the tablet beside you, the one still slightly warm, as if it had just been baked in a scribe's kiln, but you have no memory of carving it. No memory of sitting up, no memory of mixing ink or forming letters. And yet, the strokes are undeniably yours, except they aren't. The lines curve in ways your training would never allow. They hum with a rhythm that feels older than language, older than bone. The symbols shimmer faintly in the morning light, as if refusing to commit to the surface fully, like they might slip off and float away if you stop staring. You lift it carefully and notice a second line of script beneath yours, like a whisper trying to be heard under your breath. You know you shouldn't, but you press your thumb to it anyway. A flicker. The room around you swells and then stretches, as though the air itself is being exhaled. When it snaps back into place, you're still in your chamber. But you're not alone. Two high-ranking priests in long saffron-colored robes stand at your door. You've been selected, one says. For what? You ask, trying to keep your voice from shaking. They don't answer. They simply turn and begin walking. And like every foolish protagonist in every tragic tale told after dark, you follow them through the winding temple halls, past the bronze doors you were never supposed to see opened, down a staircase that descends longer than the ziggurat is tall. You've heard of this place, of course. Every scribe has. The hall of preserved ink, where the oldest truths are kept. The story's not meant for recitation. The words too dangerous for sunlight. You never believed it was real. Now you're walking inside it. And oh, what a place. Stone walls, painted with layers of vanished languages. Floor tiles shaped like broken seals. Shelves stacked with tablets too brittle to breathe on. The air smells of dust, copper, and something sweet and rotting, like figs left in the sun too long. The priests lead you to a pedestal. Upon it, your tablet. You blink. You check your hands, still carrying the one from your room. And yet, this is it. A perfect replica. Or maybe the original. The older priest turns to you. His eyes are milk white, but his gaze is direct. You've begun something, he says. Now you must finish. You open your mouth to protest, but then something shifts. Behind him, a small door creaks open on its own. From within comes the sound of scratching, not of rodents, but of styluses. Many of them, frantic, furious. Step inside and find a room filled with young scribes. All women, all silent, each working on a tablet. None looking up. You recognize one. It's the girl from the archive, the one who gave you the copy of the forbidden stream. You try to approach, but one of the priests stops you. They are in the middle of transcription. If they stop, they will forget. You look back at the girl, and for a moment, she does look up, just barely. Her eyes flicker with something familiar. Regret? Warning? The youngest priest hands you a blank tablet. You have more to write. But I don't know the story, you protest. He places your hand on the stone. You do. You lived it. The stylus in your hand now feels like it belongs there. Just physically. Spiritually. You begin to write again. Not because you want to, but because the words are already forming, curling behind your eyes, blooming in the backs of your teeth. They taste like sand and honey. Bitter and sweet. As you inscribe, the room dims. You don't notice when the priests leave. You don't notice when the door shuts. You don't even notice that the other scribes have stopped and are staring at. You dot, and slowly, their tablets begin to rewrite themselves to match yours. Not one by one, all at once. Like the story you're telling is stronger than the ones they were transcribing. That's when the walls begin to groan. You're not scared. You should be. But you're not. This has happened before. Many times. To many scribes. You remember. Now. This is why being a female scribe in Mesopotamia was dangerous, not because of war, or kings or jealous priests, but because sometimes the words you write begin to remember you back. The moment you lift your stylus again, the air thickens. It's like trying to breathe through cloth soaked in oil, slow, heady, almost intoxicating. You press the tip into the clay, and something pulses in the stone, like a second heartbeat beneath your own. The tablet isn't just accepting your words anymore. It's encouraging them around you. The other scribes remain eerily still. They sit with styluses frozen mid-stroke, eyes wide open but unfocused, like they're listening to something only they can hear. One girl's lips are moving, silently mouthing the words you're writing. You try not to look too long. You're afraid if you make eye contact, something ancient will slip through the cracks in your memory. But you keep writing. Your fingers move without instruction. You're not entirely sure what you're writing until you see it afterward. Names you've never read, cities you've never visited, events you've only half dreamed, detailed with a precision too vivid for invention. Battles fought with obsidian scythes. A queen who wore a crown of living snakes. A language carved into the bellies of fish. You pause, panting, as if the act of writing has become a form of physical labor. Your hands ache, your spine protests. But your stylus burns hot with urgency. And then you feel it. The ground shifts beneath your seat, not violently, but deliberately, like something beneath the temple has stirred, acknowledging your work. You glance up, and the young scribe from the archive is no longer seated. She stands beside you now, silent, her eyes ringed with soot. She reaches out and brushes a thumb across the wet clay. The lines smear not into chaos, but into another layer of meaning. Glyphs within glyphs. An entire story behind the visible one. You look into her face and see your own reflection. Only younger. No, you whisper. That can't. She places a finger over your lips. Her hand is trembling. They won't let you leave, she says. Who? The ones who remember. You hear the scraping again, the endless styluses in the chamber beyond. But they're louder now, angry, erratic, as if the act of writing itself is tearing the seams of whatever reality you've stumbled into. You try to step away from the tablet, but your feet won't move. She leans in closer. They'll offer you more ink. They'll tell you the city depends on your memory. They'll say your name will be etched into history. You nod slowly. You've heard this before. In dreams. In whispers. Is that a lie? She gives a sad smile. It's worse than a lie. It's true. The ground trembles again. You feel heat rising from beneath the stone tiles. A deep rumble, like the voice of the underworld clearing its throat. The glyphs on your tablet shimmer gold, then black, then vanish entirely, leaving only a blank slate. Except it's not blank. You now see layers upon layers of faint writing, as if dozens, no hundreds of versions of yourself had written the same story, again and again. Stacked like translucent sheets of vellum. Each one correcting the last dot, each one trying to get it exactly right. You understand now. This is the curse of the female scribe. To remember. Endlessly. To rewrite until the truth no longer matters. To be the vessel, not the voice. You turn back to the girl. What happens if I stop? She doesn't answer. You already know. The temple walls are hungry. The ink is older than blood. The gods prefer the taste of women who know too much. Still, You grip your stylus again, because if someone has to finish the story, let it be you. Let it finally end. And as you carve the next line, a whisper curls out from your mouth, unbidden, older than you've ever sounded. Let the clay remember what the kings forgot. The room falls still. You are not afraid. You are not alone. You are the memory now. Your stylus lifts itself. Not literally, of course, but your grip is so light, your arm so tired, and your mind so not entirely here, that it feels like something else is guiding your hand. As if the story, once buried deep under centuries of sun-baked earth, has decided it wants to be known. It's just using you to crawl back into the light. You blink, and you're no longer in the archive room. You're outdoors, beneath a jaundiced Mesopotamian sky, flat, endless, the color of bruised parchment. Wind pushes dust in lazy spirals around. Your feet. In front of you stands a figure in ceremonial robes, stiff and rich with saffron and indigo thread. Her face is hooded, but her voice cuts like copper. You've written too far. You stare at her. You know that voice. It's the senior priestess, the one who first handed you your writing tablet when you were just a girl. The one who told you that language was divine, but only if handled properly. There's no such thing as too far. You whisper. She takes a slow step forward. There is when the words know they're being remembered. Behind her, shapes form in the heat-haze columns of ancient script, walking like men. Glyphs rising from the sand like skeletal birds. They make no sound, but their presence crushes. The wind. The scribes who survive longest, the priestess says, know how to forget strategically. You nod, but not in agreement, more like acknowledgement. That is the way things work, isn't it? The city runs on selective memory. The wrong name copied in the wrong column can start a war. The right phrase deleted can erase a bloodline. But you're done forgetting, so you kneel, right there in the dust, and open your writing tablet, though there's no clay now, only smooth. Bone, dry, and waiting. The stylus drags across it like flint on flint, and sparks leap into the wind. You begin writing again. You write the names of the female scribes whose tablets were cracked and thrown into the river. The chants they encoded into lullabies so their babies wouldn't forget. You write about the temple rituals that disguised accounting as magic and magic as accounting. You even write about the whispers, that the oldest writing wasn't meant to record human memory, but trap it. Behind you, the sky groans. The glyphs are getting closer now, reforming into something larger. A woman-shaped storm of vowels and verbs. Her fingers are punctuation. Her teeth are commas. She is the mother of inks. They used to tell stories about her. They said she drank the spilled words of her daughters. They said she only came when a scribe remembered too well. The priestess draws a circle in the sand with her foot. Inside it, nothing stirs, not even the wind. Cross this, she says, and you'll stay remembered forever. Is that a threat? You ask. It's a sentence. You laugh short, sharp, exhausted, because you've already crossed it. You crossed it when you hit a forbiddance poem inside a grain ledger. You crossed it when you dared to translate a king's decree into the tongue of kitchen girls. You crossed it when you wrote the truth of a ritual no one was meant to survive and lived. Now, your name will ripple through ink like oil in water, but it will ripple. You take a deep breath, close the bone slate tablet, and stand. The glyph storm hovers just behind the priestess now, but she doesn't flinch. I'm not here to erase you, she says. Only to warn you, you nod. That's what they always say, just before they blot you out. Then you reach out your hand and press your fingers into the air between you and her. The veil between memory and story, between history and dream thins. The priestess does not resist. Her form begins to blur. Ink runs from her eyes. Words pool at her feet. And you say, softly, like an editor ready to publish the final draft, let this version stay. She doesn't answer, but the wind shifts. The sky lightens. And the mother of inks, she waits, but doesn't come, not yet. Starts from the turning point before the premature ending. You don't stop moving, not even when your sandals begin to wear thin. The journey has brought you to a dusty settlement farther north than you've ever gone, a place where traders speak in strange accents, and the ink smells different, more acidic, less subtle. You're supposed to be laying low, but your hands itch when you see the thick reed stalks bundled by the clay schoolhouse. You offer to help with transcriptions. Not for pay, just for the silence, the ink, the safety of routine. But safety is always a mirage. One morning, a bearded man enters the room, eyes scanning each face. You freeze. He carries a tablet that bears a royal seal. He's from Yore. He asks your name casually, like it's just a formality. You answer falsely, voice steady. He stares too long, then nods and walks away. You don't sleep that night. Or the next. The local headmaster notices. You expect suspicion, but instead, he brings warm barley milk and leaves it on your window ledge. No words, just kindness. You're not used to that. Still, you know your time here is limited. You start recording your own story, carefully, in hidden lines between merchant records and grain logs. It's dangerous, foolish even, but the truth keeps crawling back into your hands. One evening, a sandstorm howls through the region. Everyone huddles inside. You stay behind in the schoolroom, holding your stylus over wet clay, your fingers trembling, not from the cold, but from memory. You remember Enlil's tower, the interrogation chamber, the woman who didn't return. Right. As the storm thrashes outside, the walls of the small school tremble, and your clay tablets dry crooked on the shelves. You press your fingers to one, like sealing a promise. And then, a footstep behind you. Quiet, deliberate. You turn slowly. It's not the bearded envoy. It's her. The teacher from the tower. Alive. The storm outside pauses for a heartbeat. Or maybe it's your heart. She's older now, thinner, her eyes hollowed with something you recognize, escape perhaps. She says nothing at first, just lowers her satchel and unrolls a worn cloth bundle. Inside it tablets. Stolen ones. Your work. She whispers. I've been following the handwriting. You don't breathe for a long time. She's right in front of you, as real as the heat still radiating from the clay on your fingers. The last time you saw her, she was being dragged through a corridor echoing with shouts, one of those scenes. That tattoo itself into your memory and never softens with time. And now, without a sound of warning, she's unrolling stolen history across your table like it's a quiet market day. Her fingers are blistered. Her voice, when it finally comes, is worn smooth like river stones. They never expected a woman to memorize half a library. You don't know whether to laugh or cry. You do neither. Instead, you touch one of the tablets, brush a smudge of your old stylus across a symbol you remember carving in the dark, so you escaped. She nods. I bribed a scribe. He let me swap my execution order with a duplicate. Classic Mesopotamian paperwork mishap, you whisper. She smiles briefly, and you both exhale at the same time. The storm outside returns to its tantrum. But it's quieter now, like the land itself is leaning in to listen. Over the next few hours, you two speak in ink, in memory, in silence. She's been gathering fragments, your fragments. Not just from Yore, but from smaller towns, from market. Receipts from tombs even. You left a trail, she says. Not many could read it. But I could. You feel suddenly seen, not as a fugitive, but as something else. A ghost made flesh. And then she lowers her voice and explains what's coming. There's a raid. She says, not here, back in the southern temples. They're purging the old priestess's records, rewriting them. Burning what's inconvenient, a full erasure. Your stomach drops. You know exactly what that means. Names gone, rituals forgotten, medicine reduced to myth. And among those names, yours. She looks at you with an expression you've never worn but always feared. Calm determination. I'm going back. You don't. Have to, but I need another scribe. Of course you say yes. Not because you're brave, but because the silence would kill you otherwise. The plan isn't exactly a plan, Dot. It's more like a list of maybes, whispered between mouthfuls of flatbread and stolen glances through the shutters. You'll travel at night, avoid roads, bribe a few gatekeepers, and somehow sneak into one of the most heavily guarded temples in the south, where the rewritten tablets are being baked, sealed, and locked away. Simple. Before leaving, she gives you a new name etched on a shard of pottery in a dialect you barely recognize. You'll be a temple archivist from Eridu. No one questions the archivists, she says. Then adds with a wink, they're too boring. You pack light. One stylus, 2 wax tablets hidden in your robe lining. A small vial of ink she swears is better than blood for writing in the dark. And the most precious thing, a wax-sealed pouch of your own memories compressed into tiny, coded marks no priest could decipher. Not unless they'd lived your life. The road south is a dream soaked in sand and heat. Days blend into evenings as you pass dusty fig orchards, half-flooded ditches, and columns of herders moving like shadows along the riverbanks. Your companion is silent most of the time, but sometimes she hums under her breath songs you only know from broken verses in banned lullabies. On the 4th night, you come across a crumbling way station where a wandering bard performs with a reed flute and a battered drum. You sit in the dark corner, cloaked and still, while he sings a tale of 2 scribes who rewrote fate beneath the moon. Your companion squeezes your hand. That one's ours, she whispers, when you finally see the towers of the temple looming across the canal. You feel smaller than you ever have before. The temple is no longer a place of devotion, it's a machine of erasure. Fires burn all night, not for offerings, but for baking clean new narratives. Scribes walk in pairs. No one speaks loudly. That night, you break in. The clay walls are warm to the touch. You pass doorways draped in ash-stained curtains, walk through rooms lined with sealed archives. In the inner sanctum, you find them, rows and rows of rewritten tablets, new myths, scrubbed names, old spells remolded into household charms. She begins swapping them. You begin inserting your own. It's terrifying, surgical, sacred. But the real danger is yet to come, because as you reach for the last vault, you hear it. Footsteps, sharp, military. A guard enters the outer corridor. Torch in hand, you freeze. She slips the last tablet behind the new seal. Then, calmly, she raises her robe hood, steps out into the torchlight, and starts reciting temple protocol in flawless bureaucratic Sumerian. You don't understand a word of it, but it works. He blinks. He nods. He leaves. She looks at you with that calm fire again. Told you, archivists are boring. And just like that, you walk out together, ghosts, carrying history in your robes, waiting for the clay to dry, waiting for someone to one day read the truth again. You don't sleep for 3 nights, not because of the fear. That passed hours ago, left behind in the vaulted silence of the temple halls, where fire met clay and your fingers rewrote the lines between myth and truth. No. What keeps you awake now is something stranger, the sensation that you've split in two. The person walking back northward, dressed in dusty saffron robes and chewing on dates to stay awake, is not the same girl who once carefully copied prayers beside her mother's. Loom, you're part scribe, part saboteur. A ghost in the footnotes of Empire. She seems unfazed. At a roadside shrine, she casually lights a stick of incense and whispers a blessing, not to the gods, but to the forgotten scribes who came before you. They always return, she says, in different hands, on different tablets. But they return. You laugh, but it feels like the laughter of someone else. News begins to reach you through gossip and rumor. A fire in a temple archive. A scroll misplaced, then recovered, but with the ink oddly blurred. A priest exiled for errors of transcription. Little ruptures. little glitches in the official narrative. You start to see yourself in them, not as a hero, but as a smudge. A careful, deliberate smudge in a history that was supposed to be clean and controlled. Your next stop is a mountain town where stonecutters speak their own dialect and wear their hair in coiled braids like the old Akkadian stewards. You stay in a house filled with scrolls no one has touched in generations, translating fragments of dreams, scratched into alabaster slates. There's a phrase you find repeated over and over. The eye writes what the mouth dare not say. You copy it on a wax tablet and slip it into your sleeve. Just in case. That night she tells you the plan isn't finished. You think rewriting a few myths is enough? The temple will adapt. They always do, but if you plant the right contradictions. She trails off, letting the sentence hang like smoke. This time, she's not talking about sneaking into a temple or trading forged seals. She's talking about writing a new ritual, one that can't be erased, because it looks like it belongs. A ceremony. She says, a festival maybe, the kind of thing bored priests approve without reading, the kind of thing young acolytes memorize without questioning, a chant that hides a memory, a blessing that passes a story. You're not just writing on clay anymore. You're writing on people. You travel to a small village surrounded by reeds, where midwives still sing to the river spirits. She teaches you the rhythm. You write the verses. By dawn, a group of girls is already chanting them during a ritual hair-braiding ceremony. They don't even know what they're saying, not yet. But the stories in there coded in metaphor, hidden behind the names of stars and flowers. You see one of the girls pause mid-sentence, frown, and look into the fire. Maybe something clicked. Maybe. Not yet, but it's there now, buried like a seed in the mud brick walls of their memory. Priest couldn't burn that. Even a king couldn't. Find it. And as you pack up again and disappear into the road dust, you realize something terrifying and beautiful. You are no longer the scribe. You are the text. You arrive at the city of Yor as the rains begin. Not the sweet kind. Not the romantic drizzle of myths, but the real kind. Heavy, relentless, muddy streets swallowing sandals. Parchment swelling and curling on its shelves. The smell of wet limestone. And sheep dung rising like an unwelcome hymn. Yor is where stories go to be stamped, ratified, fossilized. You used to think it was the safest place in the world for a scribe. Now you know better. Your name is no longer yours. Your accent shifts. Between districts. You walk with a basket of blank tablets on your hip and a half smile on your face, just like every other low-ranking temple scribe. No one looks at you twice. Perfect. Because you're not here to be seen. You're here to finish what was started. She's already in the city. You find her tending to an old priestess who collects dying scrolls and swears they talk to her at night. They speak in riddles, she says, and sometimes they laugh. You don't ask what they're laughing about. You help the old woman with her. Fire offered to rewrite some of her mold-damaged scripts. She thanks you with a blessing that hasn't been uttered since the first dynasty. And then, between cups of watered beer and bitter lentils, you do it. You slip your final fragments into the scroll work of the most sacred temple in the region. A love story retold as a liturgy. A mourning song with inverted names. A genealogy where the matriarch outlives every king. It won't matter now if they burn your body or grind your tablets into dust. The echoes are planted. The rhythm is spreading. You hear your words repeated. In a lullaby from a girl who's never met you. You watch a page boy chant one of your blessings to the rain as if it were ancient canon. And yet. The closer you get to success, the more you feel the danger wrap around you like damp linen. A new priest arrives in Yor. Not just any priest, a high censor sent by decree of the king. His robes are too clean, his eyes too sharp. He asks questions in places where silence used. To live, he's looking for someone. He just doesn't know what she looks like. You and your companion sit by the ziggurat steps and watch him pass. His sandals leave no mark in the wet clay. Do you think he suspects? You ask. She shrugs, then smiles faintly. He suspects someone, but not the girl in russet robes with ink on her sleeve. Not the one who walks like she's been ignored all her life. You want to believe her, but that night, you find one of your fragments missing from the temple wall. In its place, a smear of wet ash. A warning, you don't sleep. The next morning, the old priestess is gone. No note, no explanation. Only her broken stylus left behind, split clean down the middle like a snapped bone. You want to run. Gods, you want to run so badly, but you don't, because you're not done yet. There's one tablet left to place. The one with your true name carved in code, the one that started all this. The story of the girl who wasn't supposed to be a scribe. The girl who saw too much, wrote too much, lived too long in the margins. Tonight, you place it, and maybe tomorrow they'll come for you. But tonight, you write. The day begins with the sky the color of dried blood and crushed figs. Something's coming, you feel it before it arrives. The hush of the city shifts. Pigeons don't land on the temple spires. Merchants pack their stalls early, whispering of omens in the patterns of goat intestines. You, of course, don't need omens. You've been writing them. The high censor makes his rounds with 2 guards at his side, their spears polished like promises. He doesn't look at you directly, but the wind shifts when he walks by, as if the air itself wants to step out of his path. You've hidden the final tablet, not in a scroll shelf, not under a priest's bed, too obvious. You slid it into the foundation of the city's drainage altar, beneath the stone where offerings of barley water pour out during new moon rituals. It will weather time. It will hear every whispered wish, every incantation. It will soak in sacrifice and sewage alike, and still it will sin. And now you wait. Not to be caught, though that's possible. Probable even. You're waiting to feel whether it worked, and sometime past dusk it does. A girl walks by, maybe. 8 years old, barefoot and humming. The tune is familiar, too familiar. It's the chant you buried 4 cities ago. The one about the goddess who sheds her gold and becomes clay. She doesn't know where she learned it, but she's singing it like it belongs to her. You close your eyes, that's all you needed. You don't go back to the temple quarters that night. Instead, you find your companion. Yes, she's still here. Still sharp-eyed, still ink-stained. She's lighting a tiny fire in the corner of an abandoned archive, surrounded by crumbling records that no one reads anymore. You look tired. She says, "I wrote everything," you answer. She nods. Then it's time. She doesn't mean it like death. Or maybe she does, because time for a scribe is slippery. It doesn't move forward like water. It loops, folds, echoes. You burned stories. You planted new ones. You stitched fragments into the seams of festivals, prayers, lullabies. You rewrote history not by replacing it, but by haunting it. Whispering to it, you left ghosts in the margins. And now those ghosts walk in sandals, chant blessings, laugh at funeral songs. There's one more ritual left. Not in any temple. Not in any codex. She holds out a brush made of date palm bristle. Dips it in thick black ink. "Write it," she whispers. "On what?" You expect her to hand you a tablet. A scroll, anything. But instead, she lifts your arm, turns it, the inside of your wrist. The soft skin where a scribe's pulse thrums. Here. And so, for the first time, you write your name, not your temple. Name, not your alias. Not the title someone gave you. Your real name, on your skin. A sentence made flesh. And when the ink dries, you feel it. The story is closed, not ended, closed. Because it's out there now. In the hands of girls, copying scrolls beneath oil lamps. In the breath of boys chanting verses they don't fully understand. In the sly smile of midwives whispering verses before birth. In the lullabies, the ruins, the floodwaters. No one will say your name in the records. But that's the beauty of being erased properly. Because in erasure, you made room for them, for all of them. You smile, and finally you sleep. The shadows grow softer now, the city's quieter. You let go of the stylus, the ink, the disguise. All around you, the stars blink in ancient constellations, none of which care who wrote what, all of which remember. Your breath slows. Your thoughts drift like windblown parchment into silence. You are safe. You are forgotten. You are eternal. Ancient memories closed. Tonight is yours. Good night.